Hey, if you have prayed in any way to take a next step on your spiritual journey, man, we celebrate that. We want to know that. We want to come alongside you and help you be faithful in taking that next step and continuing to grow. When we say next steps, right behind me is kind of the next steps that we've been talking about over the last 5 weeks as we did our Turn the Page initiative. And we said all along that, hey, this initiative really isn't about building facilities. It's not about enlarging our budget. It's about expanding each and every one of our own faith and trusting God, inviting God into more and more deeper areas of every area of our life. And just inviting you to take a next step on your spiritual journey in regard to generosity. And we put together what we call the giving pathway. And in the giving pathway, we invite people who haven't given at all to just kind of get in the game and to start, trusting God with the first portion of your resources, kind of the first fruit farms idea. And if you've gotten in the game to become consistent in that, and it's not just about coming to church and, hey, do I have an extra $5 or what can I put in the plate today, but to say, you know what? When I get paid, I'm going to take the first $20 or $100 every month, and I'm just going to become a consistent giver. And for those of you who become a consistent giver, that you are going to become a percentage giver. You're going to take the challenge and take that next step to figure out what part of your income, what percentage of your income that looked like. And maybe that was 3%. And you were gonna grow to 4 or 5%. And then the next year to 7 and really become a percentage giver. And for some of you who are already at that point, we challenge you to go to the priority level. And the priority level is what we talked about in the Turn the Page campaign, where we can really put God to the test. He said, bring the first fruits, the full tithe. That's the first 10%. Bring the full tithe into my house and just test me in this and see if I won't open the windows of heaven and pour down for you an overflowing blessing. And so we challenge you guys to put God to the test, just like he tells us in Scripture, and move to that priority level. And some of you have been at the priority level for years, and you've just kind of, hey, that's what God calls me to do, and I'm going to do that. And that might be cheerful. It just might be duty or whatever, but God calls us to take another step and to step beyond just tithe and to become extravagant in our giving. We said all along that it was about discipleship, that this represented taking those next steps in our spiritual journey. We aren't going to worry so much about the dollars. If we get this right, the dollars and the vision will always take care of themselves, because where God guides, God always provides. We talked about if we get this right, we have a vision for making a difference, a decisive impact in our community, in our world, and even right here in ourselves at 1600 Fisey Road. We talked about enlarging our lobby and expanding that, glassing in the canopy out there, putting up signage on the new Page Avenue extension, and even more signage out here on Fisey Road, so people would know where Morning Star Church is and that we're open for business and we're continuing to make room for new people to come in. We talked about, in our world that we were going to get even more aligned with our daughter church and invest more heavily in our daughter church down in the city, the Word at Shaw, that we were going to start another couple churches out here in St. Charles County. And then right here at ourselves at 1600 Fisey Road, we're going to start another service at 6 o'clock-ish on Saturday night. And then we were also going to put an emphasis on developing leaders, kingdom-centered leaders, both for inside the church and outside in the 21st century. And we said, hey, if we put the focus on discipleship, then God's gonna meet our needs. And today we're gonna celebrate the journey that we've taken. And not all the results are in. We're still getting commitment cards just literally every single day. But at some point, you just got to draw the line and say, you know what, we're gonna give a report and trust that God's going to keep bringing some of those things in. But what I want to do is I want to start and kind of share with you, and I hope that what we share is worth a little celebration today. Are you guys ready to celebrate some good news? Hey, we have 447 families who've given a communication card. Out of those 447, 294 indicated, I'm taking a step. We have about 90 of those who didn't tell us anything, so we don't know, hey, I'm a percentage giver. Maybe I just stayed at percentage, but I just moved up maybe within that percentage, but I'm not quite at the tithe. For whatever reason, we got about 90 that we don't know if they took a step or not. But out of the 447, we know that 294 said, I'm growing. I'm trusting God more with this area of my life. And so I want to start here at this end with people who say, you know what, I'm going to go and move. Maybe I've been tithing for a long time. I'm going to move beyond the tithe and give even more than 10% that God has blessed me with. And of the 447 cards, we have 70 families at Morning Star who said, you know what, we're going to go to the extravagant level. We're going to trust God even more than just kind of the minimum. And then when it comes to priority, the folks who have, you know, God said it, he said I can test me. I'm gonna put God to the test and I'm gonna move. Some of these folks have moved from consistent or maybe initial all the way up to priority. This is amazing to me that we have 81 families who say, you know what? I'm moving up to priority. I'm going to start tithing. I want in on what God is doing. And then when we get to percentage, people who have become intentional, it's no longer, you know, just I'm working. I want to get to that priority. I'm not there yet, but I'm going to make a step in that direction. And we have, check this out, we have 149 families who are saying, you know what? This is not just a little bit of what fits into my income. Now God goes to the top. God goes to the top of my budget, and I'm starting to figure out what I'm giving based on my income, a percentage, and I'm getting really intentional about this. When we go to consistent, this is that person to say, you know what? I'm not just going to go to church and whatever I happen to have in my pocket today, that's what I'm going to give. I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to be consistent that every 2 weeks, that every month, on a regular basis, I'm going to start giving to the ministry of God's kingdom. Check this out. We have 81 families again. 81 families who are kind of saying, I'm getting in. I'm going to become consistent in my giving. Now, I've saved the last one here. You'd maybe think I would work back to here, but this is the one that excites me. Because these are people who just haven't really ever gotten in the game that we know of. I mean, these are people who have come to Morning Star Church and attended and maybe served, but maybe you've given, but we don't have it in a communication card, so weren't able to assign that to you. So these are folks that we know now are getting in for the very first time on giving, have taken a step, and check this out, we have 76 families who are getting in on the goodness of God in these next 2 years. Now, this is what we're going to celebrate today, but I also have one more number right here. And this number represents the actual dollar figure that we have calculated so far based on pledges and projections for the next 2 years. And you'll remember, if you've been around, we've been talking about, hey, for the last 2 years, if we would have done nothing and just rolled the next 2 years forward, we could anticipate about $6.5 million. $6.5 million, that's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, when we first started Morning Star, I think our first budget was like $150,000. My salary was $149. So we didn't have much left over for the kids. Sorry, teasing. I'm teasing. So to think about, just $6.5 million, that's just those are numbers that I just have trouble getting my head around. That's somebody else's. They deal with that. Alan and Ashley deal with that. But I do have this number here, and you'll notice that this particular sign is smaller than these signs, and that's symbolic because at the end of the day, the amount of money that is pledged and projected is to us even less important than individuals taking steps on their spiritual journey. So we won't even worry about this. You want to know what we've pledged and projected so far? So over the next 2 years, what we have so far, still stuff to come in, we have pledged and projected $8,496,264. $8,496,264. Every one of those dollars is precious to God because that represents a commitment from one of his people. You know what that represents? That represents an extra $1 million next year and then another extra $1 million the next year to do God's kingdom work, to make differences and change people's lives in our community, in our world, and right here at 1600 Fisey Road. An extra $1 million. God can use that in huge ways. Now, some of you are very perceptive and you're thinking, but our goal was $9.5 million, and we're $1 million, we're $500,000, a year away from that, and you're right. And after a lot of praying, we've actually decided that we're trusting God for that. We're trusting God for that extra $500,000 a year. We believe that he's going to send us the people, some of you who are not yet one of those 447. You've not turned in your commitment card. Maybe you've been out of town or just kind of got by you in the holidays. We believe that you're part of closing that gap, that God, we really believe that this is where God has called us to go. And we're stepping out on faith. And trusting. We're going to be very prudent with our resources. There's certain things that we're not going to do. We're not going to go forward with enclosures in the lobby until we have those funds in hand. We're not going to go into debt. We're going to put some signage up. We're going to reduce our debt. We're going to continue to invest in the city churches. We're going to make sure that we have a strategy in place. And so probably in 2016, we'll start our first church, satellite campus in St. Charles County. But we're trusting God. We're trusting God for that extra $500,000 a year. And hey, if you've not gotten in on this, we want you to be included in what God is going to do through each of us. So hey, if you're new here or you just want to find out more, maybe you just have misplaced your stuff, our booklets, our turn the page booklets are still out in the lobby. There's a commitment card in the back of every one of those, and you can even just go online and fill out one of those commitment cards. We want you to be a part of what God is doing as we turn the page together and celebrate God's goodness. So these next 2 years, friends, are going to be amazing. So thank you for your radical steps of faith and your generosity of trusting God with more in your life. Right.